You know, this quote from Francis Bacon, it really hits the nail on the head for what we're about to do. If you will be content to begin with doubts, you shall end in certainties. It's the perfect setup, really. Before we buy into some massive world-changing idea, we've got to test it. We have to throw everything we've got at it and see if it can survive the fire. And that's exactly what Chapter 5 of The Last Economy calls for, a trial by fire.
So, in this explainer, that's what we're going to do. We are putting the book's central and, frankly, world-breaking thesis, the intelligence inversion, on trial. We're going to see if this core idea that AI is about to completely rewrite our economic reality can actually stand up to some serious scrutiny.
All right, the trial is now in session. And in the doc today, it's not a person, it's an idea, the entire premise of The Last Economy. Our job here is to be the ultimate stress test, to hammer away at every assumption and see what's left standing when the dust settles.
To do this right, we're actually going to take on a role. We're going to play the part of the prosecution. I'm going to lay out the most powerful, the most common sense arguments against everything the book claims. These are the doubts Francis Bacon was talking about, the ones we have to start with if we ever hope to end up with certainty. And look, this isn't just some thought experiment. Can this idea really withstand the fire of skepticism? Because if it's a fragile idea, it's going to crumble under this kind of pressure. But if it survives, well, then the implications are something we all need to start taking very, very seriously.
So let's get to it. The prosecution's case. We're going to take the 7 big arguments against the intelligence inversion that the book itself brings up, and we're going to group them into 3 major attacks: the historical attack, the humanist attack, and the physical attack.
Okay, first up, and this is probably the biggest one, history. For 200 years, we've heard this story before, right? Every time a new technology comes along, people freak out, saying all the jobs are going to disappear. They were called Luddites, and guess what? They were wrong every single time. Technology just creates new jobs, ones we couldn't even have imagined. So the prosecution says, why on earth would AI be any different? This is just the Luddite fallacy all over again.
Next, the humanist argument. This one feels good. It says, okay, even if AI takes over all the boring, repetitive stuff, that's a good thing. It just frees us up to do what makes us human, creativity, empathy, art, caring for each other. We'll have this new craft economy. And if there are a few bumps along the road, hey, no problem. We've got a simple fix for that. Universal basic income. It solves the money problem and lets humanity move on to a higher purpose. This isn't a crisis, it's a promotion. And finally, we've got the physical argument. This is the let's get real argument. The world has breaks, Big tech ideas don't just happen overnight. You've got regulations, you've got culture, and you have massive, massive energy limits. I mean, do you know how much power it takes to run these AI models? It's staggering. And most importantly, we're in control. We can pass laws. We can build in off switches. This whole idea of a runaway AI takeover is pure science fiction that totally ignores the messy reality of our physical world.
So there you have it. That's the case for skepticism. And you have to admit, it's strong. It feels right, it's comforting, and it's based on centuries of things working out. But now, it's time for the defense. Let's hear the rebuttal, pulled straight from the book's core arguments.
And this right here is the heart of the entire defense. The prosecution's case, as solid as it sounds, is really built on hope and old patterns. But the book's rebuttal? It doesn't fight hope with more hope. It fights it with first principles physics. The argument is that the fundamental forces at play are just different this time, and that makes all our old maps completely useless.
So, why is this time different? First, AI isn't a tool, it's an agent. Think about it. A tractor makes your muscles stronger, but you still drive it. And AI learns, plans, and competes with you for the one thing you thought you had left, your ability to think and solve problems. Second, where do we pivot to? When machines took over muscle jobs, we pivoted to brain jobs. But when AI takes over brain jobs, what's the next move? There isn't an obvious one. And third, the sheer speed. Past transitions took generations. This is happening in years, or maybe even months. The book says the analogy isn't the tractor replacing the horse, it's Homo sapiens replacing Neanderthals.
Now, what about that nice humanist idea? The defense argues this is a fundamental misunderstanding of what AI is targeting. That frontier of uniquely human skills, it's shrinking every day. We thought it was chess, then Go, then art, then even writing. AI is conquering them one by one.
And this idea of a craft economy, it's a lovely thought, but you can't run a planet of 8 billion people on handmade pottery and poetry. It just doesn't scale. And UBI, the book makes a chilling point. Without purpose, without agency, UBI isn't liberation. It's a pacification tool.
Okay, and finally, the rebuttal to those real-world breaks. This is where it gets really interesting. The argument completely flips the script. It says intelligence doesn't just use energy, it solves for energy. An AI smart enough to design a much better solar panel or a fusion reactor just unlocked its own limits. All that real-world friction, like regulations and supply chains, that's not a break. For an AI, that's just an optimization problem to be solved. And control, in a global race for AI supremacy between nations, who is going to be the one to slow down and build perfect safety guards? The country that hits the brakes is the country that loses. Speed will always trump safety.
And with that, the trial is over. We've heard the prosecution's case, powerful, sensible, and rooted in what we know. And we've heard the defense's rebuttal. Now, all that's left is to deliver the verdict, based on the evidence we've just seen in this intellectual trial by fire.
The verdict, at least according to the book's logic, is, well, it's pretty clear. The old, comforting arguments just don't hold up. History is no longer a guide, because AI isn't just another tool, it's a new kind of intelligent agent. Our hope in uniquely human skills ignores the fact that the ground beneath our feet is shrinking, and those real-world limits we were counting on to save us, they're not brakes on AI, they're targets for it.
So, the book's core ideas, they made it through the trial by fire. They survived. But that leaves us with the only question that really matters now. It's not about whether a book's ideas are tough enough. It's about whether ours are. If all our old certainties are starting to crumble, are we willing to do what Bacon said? Are we willing to begin with doubt, to question our deepest assumptions about work and value and our own future? That is the real trial, and it starts right now.